Hi, so we're rolling from this beautiful tree as I'm connecting here with my earth, my mother, my provider, my nurturer, and my father of the sky. And I'm sharing this video to contribute towards all the climate conversations. I'm feeling so empowered, and in the last few days I've been both full of fire and energy, of communication, and also just crying, shaking, a lot of revolutionary energy passing through me and the globe at the moment. And as I'm reading and learning gradually about people like Greta Thunberg, Polly Higgins, who has started a Mission Life Force organization which you can sign to become this amazing an earth protector. That's incredible. I'll post a link. And other activists and foundations who, some I've just met locally, some in London. There's some amazing stuff going on so close to where I live even. And for me, it's tying together threads that I've been feeling for a long time, and I want to share this because I think it might encourage others who are feeling the same way. Do you feel disassociated from society? Do you feel depressive? Anxious? Do you feel there was pointlessness, hopelessness? Because in the last few years I've felt these to a degree. As a child in school I felt these, but in the last few years these have been strongly hard-hitting for me. And sometimes I feel that I can't perceive the future, and I can't see my role in society, and I can't agree with the way that society is run. And you know, I spend a long time researching conspiracy theories as well, because I'm trying to make sense of what I'm feeling, which is this very bizarre feeling of something is not right, but no one's talking about it publicly and loudly unless you really research. No one, at least in places of governmental influence or corporate influence. So all these loud voices, they're not speaking about what is going on, and I can feel something's wrong, and there's this feeling of I want to disconnect from Earth, and I want to leave. And I feel that often to certain degrees. And the hope actually is understanding the reason why understanding why we feel these things. And for me, the main key is why I'm feeling this is because it's the cry of the earth. It's the cry of our children. And this might sound weird, but I can feel this in my womb, and I can feel the movements in as I cycle with my womb, in this womanly experience that so few of us really speak that loudly about, the beautiful experience of female fertility. I feel the call of what is our future, and something is completely out of whack, completely out of harmony, and you somehow feel like you are a bizarre, isolated, shunned individual when you start speaking about these things, because either you're being too, I don't know, damnational about the negativity, or you're being too conspiracy, although there's science behind the climate devastation, the earth devastation more accurately, because it's not just the climate, and it's not just a neutral change, as I heard someone mention, because it isn't. It's a complete devastation of the earth's, the birds are agreeing with me, the earth itself, the soil, the seas, the lands which are being, did you see Mozambique? I've been to Mozambique, and I did a missions-based training there. And that area of Mozambique has actually undergone one of the worst rates of climate devastations recently, flooding. I had no idea that it was all related to the same thing until recently. And they've contributed perhaps the least towards pollution. As I grew up, I used to speak to my mum about this. We would have regular conversations about the environment, and it was honestly my childhood memory, my main childhood memory in terms of our topics was this topic, was how are we going to perceive the future, how are we going to work through. There is a serious issue at hand, and Mum was very well researched on it and would tell me about it, and she would ask me my opinion as a child, and I would tell her my opinion, and we would have this ongoing discourse, to the degree to which I considered going to do a degree in environmental science, but I leant towards international relations, and that's my heart for harmony. So what I want to share is this sense of the hopelessness, because we're not speaking about it. And for such a long time I have felt called to speak about, maybe not directly about what's going on in the ecological environment, but specifically about Mother Earth and spirituality, because reconnecting to all of these aspects is basically reconnecting to basically the aspect which has been raped and pillaged, which is our understanding of the sacred balance of the pattern of the universe, which is why we've basically gone into climate degradation. And it's reconnecting to the sacred patterns, which allows us to basically recreate society. But first of all, we have to become aware of what's happening. And I think there's this dialogue, or this belief system, that we should always be hopeful and optimistic, and we shouldn't just stay at how it is, and we shouldn't be negative, and we should be, we are the people of hope. But unless we actually say the most horrifying truth, then we are not going to be able to make a change. Greta Thunberg was saying that about, in order to have hope, we have to have action, which starts with consciousness. And for me, actually, becoming conscious of the seriousness of what's going on, which I can feel, but having the literal words and facts and figures through research now is like definitely becoming a more whole understanding, is actually, although it's most devastating to read and to understand what I am becoming aware of, what I am feeling, the pain, the vomit-like nausea that I feel in my body, although that's hard, it is actually so deeply empowering, because it's giving me an understanding and a reason as to why I feel so disconnected from society and the world that we've established in modern capitalism. Why I feel that, why I feel like I can't do it anymore and I don't know how to live. And that is actually so relieving. So whilst it's terrible, it's the most relieving thing, because you know suddenly that you actually are empowered to act, and you have all the toolkit inside of you that's been breathing and speaking to you. So I have not been speaking so much about some of these things that I would like to, because I felt that I couldn't speak. And then I thought, I should just trust that all is well, that the government will take care of it. I should just trust that the climate knows what it's doing. I should trust that Mother Earth can, just sort it all out herself. And then I realised that that is a false belief system. It's untrue to reality, because we are here with a purpose as humans, and we are here as a unique race of beings who actually prefer altruism to greed, and we actually have the capacity for huge humanitarian goodness and love. Just think of the relationship between a mother and a child, and the love, that bonding love that is, you cannot break. That is our capacity to bring goodness and our opportunity for now. And when I heard Greta Thunberg say that she is diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, that you only speak when it's absolutely essential, the fact that she is speaking as verbally as she is now just unleashed and basically bulldozed all of my belief systems that I was unconsciously harboring, that basically say that I don't need to speak. Because if someone with Asperger's is feeling the essential crisis to speak, then that means that all of us have the right to speak. I mean, grounded in love and grounded in union with others, so that we can go forwards. But we have the right to speak the truth that we are experiencing. And how empowering is that? So I'd like to give a more testimony of what's been going on in my life, and perhaps this will empower you understanding what might be going on in your life, because I believe it's all interconnected. And in the last few years, I quit my job, which was a beautiful job with Syrian refugees, but I couldn't work as recruited and contracted by what was essentially the government in the long term, because what I was seeing was that the fault of the cause of this refugee crisis is harmful decisions in politics, which I just felt like I couldn't keep clearing up, like just a cleaner. I needed to have something just wasn't fitting for me. And whilst I loved the role with the clients and my colleagues, there was something that was just off for me, and I needed to go and figure out what it was. And that, that was hugely triggered by going to Hawaii, where I spent a long 2 weeks on a spiritual journey with some incredible people led by a lady called Bridget Nielsen, who basically is part of this group supporting harmonious earth and our connection to earth and the cosmos and our spiritual development. And as I came increasingly connected to sort of ancient practices, indigenous practices of the earth, I realized increasingly and woke up to our rape of not only the planet Earth, but tribes and cultures, and pushing out our ancient heritage. Especially in the UK, we've got this beautiful ancient heritage of kind of native, almost tribal groups based around community living, and that you could go back and say that was in like times that people would say like Avalon times, but you know, you could just say that was times of dark ages, but perhaps they were enlightened times when we were deeply connected to the earth, pre as it were sort of Roman influence. There was huge Celtic connections, and people lived increasingly in harmony, so I believe, because there was a respect and an honor of the sacred pattern of life. And capitalism comes in and say that we can actually control that, and that we are more superior than that. And we use things like the Bible to say that man is the governor of the human, of the animal and the kingdoms, and so that he can do what he likes. But actually it's more like a shepherd. It's more like a supporter and a nurturer and a provider, not a cruel king, a cruel lord or overlord. So even religion has been propagating, you know, what stands to be something that is meant to bring you happiness and love is actually propagating ancient doctrine, and it's still going on actually in some really advanced and beautiful groups. So we need to assess age-old belief systems that I myself are working through. And in the last year, I've been delving into all things that I would have seen as extreme and bizarre, but have been so relevant to me. Astrology, shamanic galactic astrology, which is basically astrology connecting in with our connection with the earth and ancient practices, and being able to understand our role within the stars and how we are working for the sacred mission of upholding the sanctity of earth. So that's been incredible, and working with energy systems such as the sacred body, and working now with Kundalini yoga, which is understanding how to clean the body and to keep you whole, which for me is increasingly becoming unified with the earth. So when I go out and do my meditations, and I did yoga last night in ancient abbey ruins on the grass as the sun was setting, as I go out and be in nature and do my meditations and yoga, I'm intentionally engaging in communion with the earth and with the spirit of God in myself, and I'm doing this for the sanctity and wholeness for the futures of all, sending out a direct blessing. Okay, and as I continue with this, I just want to bring in now what's been going on recently. Is I've been aware in the last couple of years that I've been feeling increasingly anxious, and I know others have been feeling increasingly anxious, because a sense of time is running out, and we literally feel like time is running out and it's curbing. Everything is making sense in terms of working towards activism, towards our planet. Time is running out, and we have to start accepting and standing up to that, and not saying, well, that's just being pessimistic and that's not trusting in the whole plan. But actually no, this is part of the plan. This is standing up and saying time is frigging running out, and we can feel it, and the inaction is causing deeper pain. And as we start to act, we will heal ourselves, because our healing is inextricably linked to the healing of our beautiful earth. And in terms of looking at something like capitalism, and looking at the way that things are based on corporate money and salaries to earn just enough to pay the rent, which is barely manageable, commuting for hours and then working tirelessly, all towards this capitalist society, that the solution isn't in disengaging and becoming fascist, or disengaging and becoming isolationary, or disengaging and becoming like some extreme hippie where you can't connect to society, which all these routes that I felt pulled towards. The solution is to start to bring it together, and to start to become aware of why this is that we feel. And it's because that there is basically a devastation going on to ourselves, our human psyche, from being split up and caused to live in this world of greed, but also, which we aren't inherently, but also the fact that it's causing complete harm to our own humanity because of the people on the other side of the world who are suffering, human species, and the nature and the climate and the soil and the seas. I mean, have you realized how fewer insects there are? Can you imagine, depending on how old you are, well, I guess most people would be able to remember, like back in the 90s, I remember we'd be driving along and the windscreen wipers would go off and then the insects would gather on the windscreen, and you'd think, oh no, all the insects have just gathered on my windscreen, what, and like, oh, I'm gonna scrub it all off. And have you actually noticed that recently? I don't think, because now that I drive, I would notice it more, right? But I haven't seen that for years. Insects gathering on windscreen wipers is not a problem that I ever come across. And whilst that's useful in some ways, it's completely horrifying, because that means that the insect count has actually gone down. And insects are a sign of biodiversity and ecological fertility because they are pollinating plants, and without plants we can't live. So, I mean, I celebrate every time I see a bumblebee. I'm not killing spiders. I'm not going to kill flies anymore because we have a serious lack. And I read this, and it's proven research that the numbers have been counted and they are going down. I mean, no one's counting them literally, but general observations and research have found that the insect rate has fallen. I mean, it's just you don't need to go and look at research, you just step outside. It's because the wilderness of the land has been abused and murdered. And we think it's normal to have packaged food, and we think it's normal to have everything perfectly aligned in this kind of clinical setting, but that is not reality. Life is not clinical, life is not packaged in plastic. Nature is a natural pattern of how life should be, and we are basically destroying it because we think we've got a better view. We think, oh, this perfect, very sort of abstract from emotion, abstract from connection to what is natural to the earth, but creating something that's beyond and robotic, almost like kind of futuristic AI race. Whilst AI is useful, the disconnection from Earth and the actual causing of devastation through creating the AI is definitely a sign that it's not harmonious. At least for me, and I believe for many people. We can do this in a much better way if we get involved. So this is my cry for what's going on currently, and there's so much more to share, but for the moment I just had to express my heart with you. And thank you so much for watching, and as we share this moment together, let us just send a huge spark of love, huge spark of embrace around all, within all, through all, and for all. Amen.